Shiloh Ekstrom, and I have an incredible special guest with me today, my daughter Taylor, and we are going to be talking about our relationship. And from there, we're going to be talking about some really serious things that we want to bring awareness to, and for parents, for children, from sex trafficking, addictions. We are going to talk about all of it. And we want to highlight this because we've grown through this over the last 10 years and are finally able to share what we've learned and just talk about it and heal through it. Okay, so Taylor, you are 20 years old. You're going on 21. And I always joke and I say you've been 20.
And a half.
Yeah. She's been 21 for a few years. Weren't we all?
Yeah.
And okay, so we have evolved in our relationship in the last, I'd say, even few months. There has been a lot of challenges. I was a very public person for the last 10 years, which was a huge shift for us.
With your job and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, with my job. So basically, if you don't know me, I was, I went from being a single mother, obviously I had her, recently divorced, going to school. I was a server at Applebee's for many years, the Oreo shakes.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
And that was our life. It was hustle, hustle, hustle. I was picking up a lot of hours, and Taylor was blessed to have family. So the one cool thing about having, a young child and being in the situation I was in, trying to work, trying to go to school full time. I was actually going to school for being a dental hygienist. I had a lot of family support.
Yeah.
Taylor never had to go to daycares, and the daycare that she did go to was a family friend.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of people always willing to jump in and help. And I think that was a blessing and a curse.
Yep.
As we found out later. There's nobody in the family is wrong. It's just that sometimes when there's too many cooks in the kitchen, people, as a parent, sometimes your voice can get filtered out, and then sometimes you can get taken out without the intention of that. And that's something that we went through, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to hit that. We're going to talk about grandmas. Yeah. We're going to talk about good things. We're just going to talk about going through divorce first and foremost.
Yeah.
So, I was 21 years old, got a divorce from your dad.
Yes.
We were very young and doing our best just to raise.
In another state too.
Right.
In Hawaii.
So I moved to Hawaii, brought you there right after you were born, was there for a while and was all by myself. Dad was working, and it was like I was all by myself on a Marine base, didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
I felt super alone. Like, I'll never forget, I was writing letters home. I've talked about this. I didn't have a phone. I mean, we were like not in a financial situation. Yeah. So it was tough. And I wanted to go home and be around my family, your family. I needed help.
Well, that support when we moved out there wasn't really there.
There was no support.
Yeah.
And then being cut off from the world on an island that's super expensive, and having no job. And it was like, do I get a job and try to navigate this? Or do I go home and ask for help from my family? Because it was my family, your family. I moved in with your dad's family, your mom, your grandma and grandpa, which was a huge blessing. Yeah. So I was raising you there. And then that's when I got into working at Applebee's and starting to be in the server industry, which was a blessing as well, because I got to work as many hours as I want. We went on vacations.
Yeah.
We were in all the sports.
Yep.
So, okay. So the beginning of your childhood, surrounded by family, nothing, in my opinion, was not super dysfunctional. Me and Dad, we ended up getting divorced.
Yep.
It was tough. I went through a few stages where
it was for the better.
It was.
Looking at now, like, I always remember I used to be like, oh, just, get back together. Like, no. Like a kid. You can't do that.
Every kid wants their parents to stay together. I remember that was
looking
really
at it
hard.
now, I'm like, that was the best thing. And also, like I said, the other day, like, we were all growing up together, like.
All kids growing up together. So you had, I was 21 when I got divorced. Your dad was 23 or 4.
23, yeah.
Yep. And then you were a child, a baby, 1 and 2. And so we were all learning this together. And I come from a family of divorce. Your dad didn't. And so for one side of the family, I think it was a really hard transition. For my side, we were like, I mean, not that it was not easy. I think for me, that divorce hurt me more than many things, because There was just so much behind it. I didn't want to say I ever had a divorce. I didn't want to do the wrong thing. I wanted you to be healthy. And I put so much guilt and shame on myself. So while we go through this, I start working, I'm going to school, and I think we had a pretty good balance.
Yeah.
You know, we had some chaos, but like mom and dad got along.
In the beginning. Just like beginning like before DJ?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, like really quick.
Yeah. Like
I dated somebody. Yeah, I had dated somebody, had an apartment of my own. I was really proud of that. You know, my dad was still around, so he was around in your life. You just had a lot of people, which was awesome.
And I was with grandpa like a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
So raised by many, like it took a village, right? But it was a village of all family. My family, dad's family.
I feel like my childhood was mostly like family though. Like it wasn't really like a friend, you know?
No.
It wasn't. Like my family was my friends, you know. I didn't really have that like that kind of, which was nice because, you know, I needed it.
Exactly. Sure. So why I'm telling the listeners this is it's really important to know that even though we might have had a divorce in there, and even though we might have had some challenges, you had a very healthy childhood, meaning there wasn't crazy stuff going on. You weren't around drugs or, I mean, yeah, mom drank or people drank, but it wasn't severe. We didn't have like crazy things happening, and you had a very stable household. Why I tell you that is because as we evolve in the story gets it rapidly deteriorates. And I had a lot of shame around that because as a parent, you take on every single thing that happens with your child, no matter what, and you take it on yourself like it's my fault. I might cry on this just because there's a lot of pain that it's taken a lot of years to get through. So we get to the point where mom meets a high school friend, we've been friends forever. Dad was friends with. I get married. And he was in the sports world, so very busy life, had a great family as well. So we come into another family dynamic. So we have all these amazing families, all taking care of kids. Yeah. Like there was all healthy. Yep. You know, there was no breakdown. So I get married, I get into another family dynamic. We're happy for the most part. And Taylor is starting to struggle with maybe some ADHD. I mean, that's what they called it. And the reality is we were kind of in this push and pull with, did we put her in school a year too early? Or, you know, what do we do? We ended up not holding her back. I remember this. And then we should have. And so the next year she failed. So then we ended up holding her back the year we shouldn't have. And it was sucky for her. And she really struggled. And this is where our battles began, the battles of homework. And my love language, and I said this the other day, was yelling. And sometimes it comes out. And I'm not as bad now. I still do. But I mean, the yelling was what, and truly I grew up with as well. On my mom is a yeller. So my mom's love language as well was yelling. And then I adopted that because she grew up around that. And great family, but the yelling was definitely there. And so we had this breakdown where you had a stepdad, and I want you to jump in on this now.
Sure.
So for our listeners, we're kind of catching you up to the first part of the story. I mean, she's still a child. You're probably 7, 8, 9. This is the years.
Yeah.
And we start breaking down a little bit where we can start talking about what was about to happen. So we have a stepdad who absolutely loved you, but he was still a stepdad, and he was trying to navigate having a brand new kid, brand new babies. We had brand new babies. Working a very, very professional, busy, crazy career where there was traveling. I was going to school. There was a lot of stress that came onto the family in good ways. Mm-hmm. Where were you at right about now? Because you can remember this, where you started to pull away a little bit from me and what was happening. I mean, you loved your brother and sister. They were very little, but you were starting to struggle. So tell the listeners kind of from your perspective, this is, I mean, all the way up to 10, 11, 12, because this is where the years started breaking down. What was going on?
I feel like even just going back to not being held back in kindergarten, but being held back in first grade, even just like that extra year that I got held back was more like if I would have got held back in kindergarten, it wouldn't have been a big deal.
Right.
But the second it was first grade and everyone's getting a little older and I got held back, it's like no one else got, everyone kind of got held back in kindergarten or didn't get held back. So I was the only one. It was honestly really hard. I dealt with like bullying from age like, I swear like 6 or 7, like right actually when that did happen, I feel like my life kind of started to change where it wasn't so much family anymore. And as my family started like growing up, we all just kind of like, like for me, like my dad's side of the family, my mom's side of the family, like DJ's side of the family, like it's all, it was all kind of just like, not mutating, but like
it was evolving.
Growing. Yeah, it was
evolving.
It was different. But yeah, I definitely think when the bullying started to happen, I kind of started to lash out. I had 2 parents 3 parents actually that all worked super kind of like busy, like important jobs. And I was just kind of like struggling, figuring it out with myself. And I was having a hard time finding the right people. I was kind of like going in between groups. Like I really just like was trying to find, which one.
I think you started to a little bit manipulate it too, because kids do that. I've done it.
Yeah.
And I think what was going on, and also where I made a mistake and I identified it way later, is because when you were getting bullied, I wasn't believing you the way I should have. I think I was thinking she was using it as an excuse, not because she wasn't getting bullied. Like, and I don't condone bullying. And now that I look at it, I'm like, wow, she probably was getting verbally
I actually
hurt.
think I was like, I'm going to be honest, like back in the day, like I wasn't really a good kid at all. I was a really big liar. I literally would lie about things that I didn't even need to lie about. It's just like, it was just a thing for me. And I got into a lot of really bad habits at a young age. And I think when you do have parents that are working busy jobs and you are learning and growing and, you're not with, I wasn't really with friends when I was little. That wasn't really my thing. It was more like family. I was with my sister and brother a lot. And we spent a lot of time together and just, kind of just a homebody. But it was definitely hard when I'm kind of being a little shithead and I'm telling them these things because, it's easy to be like, well, look at that. But it kind of went a little deeper than that. And I think I've always, I have a reputation, I have a past, and, it's hard to tell people things when you lie. It's hard to, it's hard. And when you have serious things, I think my biggest thing was I've, in my whole life, in my childhood, I've had horrendous, terrible things happen to me that I've healed from, that I've grown from, that's why we're here today, being able to talk about it. But it's just hard when, you're being that kid, but also, your parents have jobs, they can't be there like this, when they have time, they can, but it's just hard when it's all like, they don't know, you know what I'm saying? And
so I think
whole, like, you don't
I know what
game.
you're saying. And this is a really good point. So Taylor started lying at a very young age too. So she's talking about this age of like 6, 7. So we were going through, why didn't I believe her bullying? Well, because she did tend to lie to get her way. She also used the family and manipulated. So what would happen is if mom didn't give her her way, she knew to go to a grandma. Didn't matter which one. And if they would go, oh, okay, they wouldn't know that they were doing anything wrong because she was very good at manipulating and telling a lie, and you would never know she was lying. And that was the hardest thing. Like, she developed these skills and they were very early, where when as a mother, I was going, whoa, I think she's lying. And people were starting to argue with me. Like, no way, you are being overreactive. You are too hard on her. And I remember thinking, well, how do I handle this? Because if she's going to go to my mother or my ex-husband's mother, or even my mother-in-law, who you couldn't really pull the wool over her eyes, but it didn't matter. I mean, when you love a child and this child is looking at you, You don't think they're lying to you. I mean, and then as we evolved and it got more volatile, I think that's when it really started to get bad. Like when the words were getting really, really aggressive, Taylor started to get more, as she got older, swearing and, just the things kids do to get attention. But it was getting to a point where it was getting almost physical. The tantrums at 9 and 10 even were like, whoa. So we were starting to deal with some high level behaviors. I wasn't handling it all the time, right? Because I was frustrated. I felt like I wasn't allowed to be a mother. That was a really hard thing for me. I own that. I should have stepped in at times. And then there's times I didn't know what to do because I just didn't know. And we were dealing with some high level stuff, I think, where I should have brought her in, and it wasn't ADHD. Everyone kept saying, oh, it's probably ADHD. No, I'm not medicated. I didn't want to medicate her.
No, we tried that.
We tried it.
She tried that. It did not.
She was a zombie, and it wasn't right. Like, it wasn't helping the other things. It didn't help with lying, and it didn't help with the reactions.
Yeah.
The reactions were very severe. And so I was starting to be highly aware and heightened of her. And so I just stopped trusting her completely, which was really tough because it caused every argument. I mean, I was like, no, you're not listening. No, you're not doing this right. And so my behaviors, things that I wasn't doing right, and my bad habits were throwing fuel on a fire. So I know there's a lot of parents on here, Taylor. And the reason I want to really highlight a lot of both sides is because they're experiencing this. And I want to encourage them to know that it's okay. You're not alone, but there's a lot of kids right now that are hurting. So here's what happens. We have this situation. Parents are working super busy, trying to help a child. Everyone's telling everyone how to do it.
Right.
And social media comes in. This is where I knew, and I was an anti-social media person, which is funny now because I'm on it all the time.
Yep.
I hated it. I hated Facebook. Yeah. She knew it. She was on social media before I was.
I got grounded for many months.
Yeah. So she was sneaking phone. The girl had talents I couldn't even believe. Like, she knew how to do social media. I didn't even know what I was doing. She would sneak things. She would get devices. So this is where it got very, very serious. Yeah. It got serious right about here. And, I was working a lot, and I had just graduated school, had Ashton, so my third child, and he was a baby, and then we lost a career. So my husband, his career, not lost it, but the economy had tanked, and they ended his contract a year early. We knew that was coming, but it's still hard when you are like, whoa, we weren't ready for this. So what happens? We're scrambling, going into panic mode. I start a business from home, plus I'm working as a dental hygienist, and I'm like busy. And so while this is happening, what does the manipulative child do? And this is what any kid would do. They find outlets that they want to find, and social media was getting really big. And so let's talk about that. This is where we come into some serious stuff. So I want to challenge my listeners and also just prepare you that we're going to talk about some really hard things in the next probably half hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And this could be a series, but we are going to talk about a really big issue of sex trafficking. And this is something that I did not know was happening. It was happening. And our family has been, working on this and healing it for many years. And also Taylor has been healing from it. And there's a lot of things that were going on. So I want you to tell parents who are listening, what happened and how does a child of even 12 years old get sucked in by a predator? And no names.
Right. No. So it was actually me and my younger cousin. She was 3 or 4 years younger than me. So we were at my stepdad's parents' house. So I went through an experience at a very young age. I was like 12. But a lot of these things happen. I think with me growing up in the social media, when you're younger and, it's just, I was dumb, I was very dumb, but also this situation wasn't because I was being dumb. This was simply because I was in a play area and an older kid who was 17, I was 12 at the time, threatened my life. Not to tell anyone. He put his private parts in my face. He made me do a lot of things that I didn't know how to do. I didn't know what it was. I knew it wasn't good. I knew that I felt, I don't know, I felt like completely shut out because I knew I couldn't say anything, but also like going through the days, like I was so, messed up mentally. Like I'm still trying to figure it out. My parents don't know what's going on. All I want to do is tell them. All I want to do is ask for help.
And so you had an older boy who in a child's world is in a power position. We understand this because mom's gone through that when she was really young too. I was around a lot of kids in the neighborhood and something similar happened. And so an older boy in kid world, that's power, they have a little bit of power, or, you feel like you can't argue with them. So you have an older
especially
boy.
When you're so young, like I didn't know, I didn't even know what a guy had. I didn't know what a guy had. That was the first time, I knew it was bad, and I knew I didn't want it at all. And I said that a lot, but also like at that time, I didn't know if he had a gun. I didn't know if he was actually going to kill me, but like
you were scared.
Yeah, you wouldn't anybody be like,
you don't know.
It was seriously like, when growing up, I mean, kids always have their little shit show stage, but usually they start to, just like start growing up and getting into it and just hanging out with, kids and doing all this stuff. And I don't know, I feel like it was very hard for me to even help what I was going through before when that just happened. It just like, it really just like messes up your whole mental. And I don't know, it made me just go even more downhill, I feel like. And then, thank God one day, someone saw and reported it and kind of saved my life that day. I remember coming home off the bus and I saw some people that I don't know how, but I just knew that day. I walked in the door and I started bawling because I knew that you guys had found out, So I was more like, thank the Lord, but also I was just like, I felt so embarrassed,
Sure.
I didn't even know what I didn't know what anything was. I was still so awkward. And also like, I'm kind of a bad kid. So it's hard because our relationship isn't as strong as.
There was no trust.
Yeah.
There was no trust. So she didn't want to come to us. So I'm fine. I found out way later. So I'm hearing this going, whoa. And the worst part about it, and I'll be honest, is I didn't know if I believed it. And it wasn't that I didn't believe that child could do that, because any child can do any of that. Like I could see it, but I was like, I just want to make sure she's telling the truth, because if she's not, because it could have hurt people. And I didn't want to feel that way because I felt guilty, but I'm like, this was the product of so many lies and having so many times where I'm like, I want to believe you. And so as a parent, I was really in a bad spot, but I did actually believe her. I never like said she was lying, but I was very nervous about the situation because it was so sensitive, and it was people in our circle. It was people in our circle that we were talking about. This wasn't like some random person. And so we had to really be careful. And, it did end up happening. And I still to this day didn't realize how big of a deal that was for her, because I come from a background of get over it. Like, that's what happens. Just get over it. Like, let's move on, heal. And that's kind of how I grew up. That doesn't mean people didn't care. We just had to keep going. And so, I think in my life and business, I've made that mistake too many times where I tell people, just get over it. And I don't acknowledge their pain. And that's part of my issue, and something I've had to learn over the last even few years, where I'm like, no, people need to heal their problems. They need to talk about it.
At such a young age.
Yeah, she's young.
One thing I do want to bring up, when you are growing up and, me as a kid, I'm kind of ruining the trust of my parents. They're divorced. I'm going back and forth. Mom says no, I asked dad. Dad says no, I asked mom.
Yeah.
And then, that's never good because
then it causes fights with mom and dad. So
and it's not good. And it's not like I was trying to, but I was, I went through a lot of trying to figure it out with also some really terrible things happening to me at such a young age where it's just like I was getting thrown. But also a big struggle for me is it is hard when you do lose that trust, because I think that was what made I think me lying and starting that out off the bat is honestly what made most of my life so hard, because I did have some really, really, really terrible, hard things, even to this day, you know what I'm saying? And now to me, the person I am today is a completely different person than I was years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've completely changed. And I moved away, but we can talk about that later. Yeah. But it is hard because when you don't have that trust, but you're having things happen to you that you need people to trust, it's super, it is hard.
So, and pivotal moment. Yeah. This happens. We're already not in a trust relationship. Relationships are breaking down all over in the family. You have started to create some volatile relationships between everybody. That was happening. So when I say that, I mean the breakdown of me and her father, who never really had issues, started to break down. He wasn't sure what she was saying was true, coming about me. So she would talk bad about me to him, talk not terribly about him to me as much, because she was a daddy's. That's totally fine. Most girls are. But what was happening is a lot of lies are being said so she could manipulate it.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because the kids do this. But what we're talking about was like a little bit higher level, because we were getting into some high level stuff. This is where the behaviors started to change a lot. So let's talk about the hard thing to talk about right now. And for the parents who are really hoping to get an insight, because there's a lot of kids right now there's sexual predators out there waiting for a child like Taylor, and waiting for these situations, because this was the perfect situation. She had been hurt. She had pushed a lot of people out due to some of her own stuff. Some of it was pain. Some of it was me. Some of it was parents. I mean, we own our parts.
That's been like a big thing, though. I've always you do the same thing. You're just talking about it. We just kind of like,
you start pushing away. You push the good people away. And what happens is she gets a little bit secluded. We add social media, and it's very easy for somebody who knows what they're doing to see how they could jump in. So talk about when that happened. What were you doing, and how did it evolve into some really serious things?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I grew up, my body, I kind of grew up fast. Even with my body, I got my period on in third grade. And I grew up so fast. I looked way older than I did. And I honestly, today saying this, like, I wish I didn't, because it was hard, and just girls and social media these days, like growing up, like it is so scary. And you have guys pretending to be, young guys, you have all these things coming at you. I had a lot of men sending me a lot of nude pictures, saying terrible things, just putting things in my head that I really didn't need. And it got super bad. So 6th grade, I started talking to this older guy that was in my school. And it was all new territory for me. I had thought I'd fallen in love. It was the first guy, like, he was older and he knew exactly, what to say. He knew exactly what to do. And then it got to at school, and then met up at school, and then just, over the phone, I was like, oh, wow, he really likes me, loves me, all this stuff that went on for months. And then it came in person and got way too far, and something I had never, it kind of just gave me a flashback to when I was 12. That's kind of how it was. And all in a matter of, a couple seconds, like I knew it wasn't right. And it's so different how people can talk on social media and how people can make you feel. But I, even in my own school, a kid luckily heard me. So he went and got the principal, and I didn't go back to school for that year. Definitely didn't. After that, I kind of screwed my reputation up.
Well, she went off the deep end. You know what I mean? She went off the deep end. So Taylor was sneaking out a lot, a really young age, like 12 years old, and things like that with older boys. The older boy thing was happening.
I think I know that now. I know exactly why I did that. And I can tell I know a lot of girls do this. So many girls do this. And I did all that with those older guys. I would talk to them, sneak out, go party with them, go, just go hang out with them, and just go do things that are fine if you're in high school, but not when you're 12 or 14 years old and, you're going through stuff and you're getting taken advantage of and you're doing things that you absolutely hate in the moment. And you hate it, but it's those guys, they make you feel that love that a lot of us don't have inside.
Self-love.
And like we don't have self-love. And when you're struggling with, stuff that's going on with your family and you're struggling with your own stuff, and then you got a guy that's telling you everything you want to hear, and like it made me hate myself truly. Well, and I don't anymore. I got over that because I did find that self-love
But they also encourage the division of the family. Like your mom is this and your dad is this, and they want to pull you away from it as well.
Just putting terrible things in my head.
Correct. Yeah. So that's the other thing, is understanding what this person is doing and how a child could think they're being wonderful. And that is where we were missing it. So I did not know this was going on. And I was that psycho mom that was like, what are you doing? And I was always in everything and I'd catch her on everything. But even if I caught her, she'd have another device somewhere. Like it was wild. And so
my friends were plugging with
me. Yeah. She just kept getting them. And so an older boy, which now we're talking 18 and 19. So we get into this area where it's not boys anymore. We're talking about adults and even beyond. And it's serious because I think we're in an age with social media where when I was in high school, the older boy, there's always one girl who dated the 30-year-old, there was always one, but that wasn't me. I didn't do that. I'm not saying I'm putting anyone down. I'm just saying there was always the one girl who was dating someone older because it was not right, but her self-love, or they knew the areas to tap in. Okay. They knew that Taylor was not getting along with her mother. They knew she was up to do anything because she wanted to be loved. Okay. And so when you get the reputation, so what happened in the high school was a big shift. This is where the bullying got worse because the reputation got bad. She was getting angry. So she was you were also very volatile.
It also got so bad, I actually moved away.
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Remer, Minnesota for a year and 38 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, I lived with two pastors of my church, Beth. I shouldn't say that.
That's okay. You're good.
Okay.
You didn't say anything. So, but here's the deal. The reason you went there, we have to go in between for everyone listening.
Yeah.
You had to go to a treatment facility, for all girls.
It was a group home.
It was a group home, not treatment, but there was a lot of.
I was the only white girl.
Healthy.
When I got there. Let's start with that. And I am not racist. And I only say that because that's literally what they called me, is the little white girl. And my first week there, this girl came in. She was many years younger than me, but same size as me. And right off the bat, because of my color, I was, get her in trouble, mess up with her hair stuff and put the stuff that makes you get hair off your legs and your shampoo. And they just really were doing all the worst. One girl actually came in my room. I was cutting my nails and I said hi to her. And she asked me if if she could have her ones. And in terms, that's like fighting, like, give me your ones. I'm going to get my ones. I didn't know that. I was not at all.
You were 15.
Yeah, I was
from a very
not.
small
I was
town.
not. I was like, I don't have your money, and all these girls are sitting there laughing at me like, good luck, you know. I remember we had a wood dresser cabinets, and there's like a dent from my head in the cabinet. I was cutting my nails, like I said, that was in my arm. I was so scared I didn't want to press charges, but the cops were like, the state was like, there's, you know, absolutely no way we have to press charges. It was bad. I was just scared, you know, and like I moved away and like, I know I have to do this. My relationship with you and my dad was terrible because I hated you guys, because I was just like, how could you send me away?
There's a big build up to this too. So
yeah.
During this, the reason Taylor did go away, the state made it happen. This is where we kind of came into full circle of understanding what was going on. Taylor had been using social media to basically put a picture out and say, this is my address. And it was severe. There was some really tough photos as parents to see.
I started raving at a really young age. I met an older boy in college when I was like 16. And we just like went to raves and wore like leotards with fishnets. And I mean, like, that's cool. You know, raves are cool and it's whatever. But like at my age, like I had a fake ID as an 18-year-old at 16 years old. And I'm living the life of a 21-year-old at 16. You know, it was just 16. You know, there was just the boys. Like the boys was a huge thing.
She ran away. She ran away a few times. The one time that really got in more trouble, there was quite a few instances that led to this, but she had ran away. I actually thought she was dead. We found her. Her dad found her.
In the res.
Yeah, and it was tough.
It was just more like they told you like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna take care of you. You don't need your parents. And
well, the scary thing about this is that because of what happened, this boy / adult, because he wasn't thinking, ended up getting a felony. And when you don't realize the consequences to a felony, what was sad is because he was harboring technically a runaway, he got a felony. And it was simply because he had her at his house. I don't think anything crazy was happening, but it wasn't appropriate.
His mom was a cop. That's how I got caught.
Yeah, It wasn't very smart. They weren't thinking.
No.
But it was when the cops sat us down and we started looking at photos of our daughter, and we started to realize that she's on the list of being sex trafficked because her activity on social media was so risque and so just not loose. That's not the right word. Irresponsible, like just really crazy stuff. Anyone could have taken her. And during that time, this was 15. So 15 goes into an all girls group and then starts dealing with some other high level girls. You got abused. You got bullied. Mm-hmm. You also have been known to get in some fights. You have a mouth too, but it was really hard. But there was some transformation. I'm gonna actually
go back on that. I got jumped, and I continue to get jumped. I got in one fight, and they put me on probation, and that's the only fight I've been in. And I'm not a fighter. Like, I don't know. I'm just sorry. I just want to say that because, like, I'm literally not. Like, I will, and I know I'm strong, but I did one time. But even in...
You egged a fight on, and then the fight you got in a fight, but they fought you. I should say it that way. She got in a terrible fight, but...
I don't think that's correct.
Well, you got beat up pretty bad. You didn't do it.
It was because she liked my boyfriend, and she followed me down the hall, kicked me down 2 flights of stairs.
Yeah, I was serious.
I literally, it's the first time I ever saw my dad cry. They were all under the camera, kicked me down the stairs and beat the shit out of me. And like her little friends, And it's funny because I actually went to treatment. I went to Amber Wing with one of the girls that fought me in 7th grade, and she started bawling and apologized for everything when she found out about my life. She, instantly felt terrible, which I'm not going to lie. She was crying, and I'd never felt so more like appreciative, but like now that you understand, yeah, you did it. And I was pretty hurt, pretty hurt, but
they hurt her bad. I mean, she was,
life's all about moving on too and keep going, like if I sat here and dwelled over every person that's screwed me over, lied to me, hurt my feelings, I'd have no one. I have absolutely not one person. It's all about moving on. And, there's people, yeah, you don't need in your life, but you don't need to.
I get it.
I don't even know. I don't know where I was going to say that.
We get out of here. You did have some growth in there. There was some healing that was done. You had some healing. It wasn't all for nothing because there was some improvement. For you, I think you got to talk. You got to let a lot of things out. I'm not saying it was perfect because the story doesn't really stop there. Now we go into some more serious things, and I'm going to let you kind of jump into
to be honest, when I moved to Reamer, so with my dad, I was a daddy's girl for sure, but also my dad was single until about 6 years ago, and it was just that was my best friend. It was just me and him all the time, and even at the time that I did move away, I said I hated him too because I was just like, how could my parents send me away? Today, looking at it, best thing that ever happened to me. Probably hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but I'm telling you, the person I am today and every single bad thing that's happened to me has made me so much stronger, has made me literally be able to be here and live my life, is because of the strengths and things I've overcame that sometimes I had to just do all on my own. And sometimes you feel like you do have no one. Sometimes you might feel that way and people might not be reaching out to you, and you might just, you have you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of times in my life where, I couldn't really ask anyone for anything. I couldn't do anything, like it was a lot of bad times where they loved me. I had people that loved me, but it's just like, they were so burnt out, and I had to be, my own person. I've always had, I feel like that extra, feel like it's my angel soul that always saves me. You know what I'm saying? I always, I always save myself.
And I think it's important to know that you had a journey there. Your dad and yours relationship broke down a little bit.
But also, when I moved back to Reamer, that was hard.
From Reamer or to Reamer?
When I moved back to Duluth from Reamer,
okay,
that was hard because people thought I died. Oh my God, the rumors and what people said was crazy. Also, after I got back from Reamer, I think we went a couple years.
Well, no, there was one incident we're going to talk about because it's important.
Yeah, that was
okay. So
exactly
yeah, and we'll talk about it because I have to own my end on that shit show. Okay, so Taylor had come back and had been doing okay. She was dealing with, I'm not going to say great, but she went back to school. There was more drama and bullies because they talk. I mean, everybody knew she had gone away and came back.
Well, to be honest, everyone was talking about what happened. The 6th grade thing, when I said, that really screwed it up. When you get a reputation, it just sticks with you, even if you're doing good,
yeah, it's school. It's high school.
You're always going to have that reputation. And it sucks because people do change. Hell yeah, people do change.
It was tough. She went through a lot and then had to come back to high school. And then I was very busy at the time. We had moved and she wanted to come live with me for a little bit. And I was very nervous about it because we had a very toxic relationship.
Yeah.
No, and her and my husband were not getting along. So there was just a lot. It was a lot. Like, do I do this because this is my daughter? I'm not going to say no to her. But at the same time, I'm scared of this because there's just so much tension and things we never dealt with. And she would react and I would react. And at the time I was highly heightened of a lot of things. I wasn't handling things right either. And so
it's hard also when you have like a third parties and like other people coming in, and like when, you know, it's not like there, you know what I'm saying? Like step and just, it's hard when outside of the family, you know, like
there's a lot of voices.
me.
Yeah. There was a lot of people jumping in
Yeah.
and trying to be like, I'm going to save her. No, I'm going to save her. Shiloh can't save her and you're going to save her.
But truly the only person like I needed was my two real parents, you know, like
Yeah, she
I needed the
parents.
love from everyone, you know what I'm saying? But everyone I feel like was trying to cancel out the two main people I needed.
Yeah.
So that's what was hard.
And I think the advice I want to give right now, because there's parents that are going, I don't know what to do. Stand, no matter how hard it hurts, take as many people out, not out of their life, but take them out of the decisions. And what was happening is there's just too many people making decisions that should not have, that didn't know everything. And it should have just been me and her father. Part of that breakdown me and her father had, we lost trust with each other and started to have a very bitter, negative relationship, which didn't help. So we didn't trust each other. And then we had so many breakdowns in so many areas. So Taylor did come home for probably a few weeks, and it was challenging.
It was 7 days.
Yeah, okay. It wasn't a few weeks. 7 days. Okay, so I had to go out of town, and we had to go somewhere for work. It was just for the day. This wasn't like overnight. And she was at school, and we had two little kids. And so I was heightened to her lying, and I was making sure she was doing the do. Like, she's in school, she's doing stuff. I get all the way down to Minneapolis, and I already get a phone call from, I believe, her aunt saying, I'm looking at her social media and I don't think she's in school.
And then the school started calling.
And then the school started calling, and I'm like, oh boy. And I was gone, and we had two little kids coming home. My mother-in-law was picking them up. I knew something was wrong, so I called her dad. He's on top of it. She's not in school. She's lying to him in text, lying to me in text. And I'm going, this isn't right, because I know you're not in school and your dad just called. So we knew she was lying. So she was at the house with two boys. And
I was like 4. They were my homies. Oh. Like they're still my homies to this day. They're my good guy friends.
So they show up though. And
yeah, we all started.
We have people at my house. She's very young. When people at her house, we've got kids that are coming home, and my mother-in-law shows up, and there's older guys. And at the time, this was just not going to fly. I was flipping out. Cops get called, and it's a nightmare. So we have cops there. I'm getting in fights with the cops on the phone, trying to get home. Everybody's involved. And
the thing is also, I'm going to say back to when I said, there's a lot of things I did at a young age where 17, 18, that would have been fun. But I just, I was doing things too old, because like we weren't doing anything bad. Like I just moved into my mom's nice house, and I was like, yeah, like we all skipped school because we didn't want to go. And we went, I took them to my house, and we didn't do anything bad. But at the time, when I'm getting in trouble and I don't have the trust, and I just, have been in my mom's house for a couple days. And then, I've always kind of had guy friends. Like I've always just kind of been more like the laid back, like I liked the fashion and all the girl stuff, but most of my friends, I can honestly say, are guys. And just at the time at my age, it was just not okay. And
right.
Yeah.
So it was a frustrating moment. The cops were there all day. We get home. I'm exhausted. And I had a little bit to drink while we were down in the cities. We had lunch, and I was dealing with this. Come home and obviously pour a glass of wine. That was my MO. And I'm just fuming because no trust. There was people in my house. I was more concerned with drugs. I was more concerned with
but I came home
stealing. There was the thing, not that happened, the stealing, I didn't, but I was more concerned, like, what is going on? And I'm
thought the worst.
We thought the worst. And it was bad. It was a bad situation. I'm not going to lie. I was super angry. And then I had people telling me what to feel and what to do. And I'm like, no, I'm effing pissed. Like, I'm not going to lie. I'm pissed. She does not need a pat on the back. Like, this is enough is enough. That's how I felt. Like, it's time to deal with this. So we get it. Like, she's sitting at the counter. She had broke 2 arms. This was crazy. She had 2 broken arms.
Also, this is when you started getting into modeling. Because remember, I was already in trouble. And then the next day I came home and I had 2 guys or 3 guys come up to me with you on their screensaver. Mm-hmm. And I was going through a hard time with that, not because of you. Like, you know, you were doing your thing, but at the time with kids my age, like, oh, look what your mom's doing. You're going to be just like your mom. Like, my mom's, like, she's an amazing person. And like, that even hurt me more because, like, she wasn't doing anything bad.
I was in a swimsuit and it was, I'd show the picture all day long.
But no, but it was just more like everyone shitting on you.
Yeah.
Everyone shitting on you. And like, I'm going to be honest, like, you know how hard that is. And you even told me, like, I understand.
Yeah, I do.
It is hard. And I admit that.
It's not fun.
Hard. And
it's never fun to hear about it's never fun to hear about your parents. And people will do that because they know it bothers you. But and also, they'll do it all the time.
We're fighting, but also I'm having, things said. And it's like, I care about her. So it's just like, I'm not mad, but I'm just like, we're not even getting along. And, like, I'm getting bullied myself. I'm getting bullied because some stupid kids are saying dirty things about my mom. Most frequent question I've ever been asked in my life is if we can have a 3-way. Like, just it's not okay. It's not gross. Okay, and it's gross. Mm-hmm. Like, my friends literally message my mom on Instagram. I don't know.
They do.
Hopefully you see this, but please stop because it's not.
Don't worry, I don't give them any fuel. Anyways,
I know they tell me they get mad.
Okay. We get in a really bad fight. We have a girl with 2 broken arms. I'm screaming at her, and I'm having drinks, and I throw a little plastic roadie wine, and I didn't throw to hit her, but I hit her. And it probably didn't feel good, but she was already ready to go. Like, I know what was happening. This was an hour conversation. Then she's screaming at me, calling me every name under the sun, everything. And she goes after me. And
I am going to say there was a third party that was also drinking, that was encouraging you while you're drunk when neither of us were in a right situation. But I'm just saying,
my husband was there and
it was not good.
He was also angry. So you add 2 angry parties in there. And so I could see his side of being angry, but there's times where you have to not. And this was the time. And I'm not even mad at him now. I get it, but he actually handled the situation after. So Taylor jumps up and she goes after me. So what do? I get her down. That was the only thing I could do. I was not going to hit my daughter. And it was hard because I was getting hit hard. And now she was flipping out. She probably
went back and forth.
Got her down a few times. She calls the cops. I get her down again. I mean, we were all over. My husband's calling her dad. We're trying to get her dad there, and he did come.
He got there. He got there in a minute.
He got there. He takes her home. I'm sitting at the counter, bleeding. I'm sure she was full of, and some cops show up at the door, and I am crying. Like, I'm sitting there after they had already been at our house the entire day. And I'm sitting there like, this is the lowest point as a mother. And I want to share this because it was. Like, at that point, I'm like, I have failed. I've completely failed. I just got into a domestic with my daughter. I'm embarrassed. Like, the cop came in and I told him exactly what happened. I said, I was yelling at my daughter, wasn't happy with her. We got into it. Take me to jail. I even said it. He's like, tell me the truth.
Do you know the reason you didn't go to jail?
Yeah, I know that. So I said, you can take me to jail because I don't know what to do. I was truthfully honest. I told the whole story. I didn't hold back. I wasn't sugarcoating a thing. I said, I don't know what to do at this point. I'm just at my lowest. And he said, well, we've already talked to her dad and her. And it was, basically, I think her dad also was just like, yeah, they're not going to jail for this. I mean, there was a lot of people
So
involved.
basically the cops gave me a choice because obviously my mom, being my mom, it was domestic. I did hit her also. And I hurt her nose with my cast. And because I had a cast, they said it was a weapon. So he gave me the choice and he said, you and your mom can both go to jail. Obviously, because of you being older and like you would have got more in trouble for it.
Correct.
So either we both go to jail and she gets fucked with her job, with
Well, anything.
I mean, it was just bad, or
you don't want to go to jail.
or we can drop it. So I just screamed at him. Oh, I got in so much trouble for this, but I screamed at him and I was just like, fucking drop it then, slam my door. Regret it to this day because it didn't go well with my dad saying that to the cops. But I mean, like,
it was a bad day.
It was a bad day. It was so bad, but
it was a bad day. But I remember.
I mean, hey.
So here's the other thing. You don't want to exploit your children. And this was a big battle. And I was starting to crumble inside.